Hello, Stan State. Welcome to the Taking Care of You podcast. My name is Julia Rosas-Nieto, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Staffero, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. We are both counselors that work at Counseling and Psychological Services on campus, also known as CAPS.
We are back with another installment addition to the Self-Compassion series, where we will explore and discuss self-compassion practices. Research indicates that people who are more self-compassionate tend to experience lower levels of depression, anxiety, stress, and shame. For this episode, we will focus on self-compassion and Dreamer students.
You're listening to the Taking Care of You podcast.
Self-care is not selfish or self-indulgent. We cannot nurture others from a dry well. We need to take care of our own needs first so that we can give from our surplus, our abundance. When we nurture ourselves from a place of fullness, we feel renewed instead of taken advantage of. And that's from Jennifer Loudon.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. That is a great example of taking care of ourselves because we cannot really help others when we are depleted or out of energy.
Yeah, that's so true. When you're just like, you don't have anything left to give, and then you can't help other people as well either if you're not replenished. Yeah. And so we wanted to introduce our special guest. If Polet, if you would like to say something about yourself.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I am so happy to be here. My name is Polet Hernandez, and I am the Undocumented Student Services Coordinator here on campus. But I am also an undocumented immigrant here in the United States. So this topic is super important to me. And of course, as for our student, it's going to be so impactful. So thank you for taking this role and helping our students.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Love that.
Yes, thank you, Polet. We do have, since this is amazing information to have for our students, we do have a few more questions for you.
Yes. So tell us a little about your experience working with Dreamers.
Yes, so I've been working here on campus for 3 years now. So we are so happy that we established this program where we focus on not just helping our students, but also their overall health and also their family members. So the program really doesn't focus only on academics, but it focuses on their whole. So we try to help them, with anything that they might be going through. And as I mentioned, me being undocumented, I feel like it gives it a little bit more power because I understand, what the students are going through as I was a student myself. So we are just here to support our students. What I see often with our students is that they feel that their humanity has been taken away from them because of the current political climate, because, many people don't really understand what it means and feels to be undocumented. So it is a lot of work with our students to help them acknowledge, that they are important and that they belong here on our, not only in Stan State, but here in the United States.
Yes. Wow. I love that working with the whole family, because it's not just that student. And then for them to, see that you are working and you are undocumented and you were, in their shoes before where you were going to school and
Yes.
all of that. That's wonderful, Paulette.
Thank you.
I also like that you already started mentioning with some of the struggles that our undocumented students face. Right? And how important it is for them to connect with the person that they are working with. So thank you so much, Polet, for working with our students and helping them every day, because every day is a new battle for our students.
Yes, definitely.
I agree. And, it's really harsh to be undocumented and having to go through the educational system, having many needs that are not met just because either the university doesn't have funding or because we just sometimes can't help the student fully, right? But we are trying to do the best we can here to support our students.
Yeah. Have you seen some improvements with what, like, the CSU at least has been able to offer students?
Yes,
Undocumented students?
one of the things that we have seen is because of student advocacy, right? Because they are now speaking about their needs. We have seen an increase of services throughout the CSU. So now all 23 CSUs have a center, or at least a place where students can come and ask for assistance. But also on our campus, I had seen so much more students disclosing their status because now they feel safer and they can reach out for help. Because before, because they didn't feel safe, they didn't reach out and their needs were not met. So we do see that improvement in our students.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, I
amazing to
love
hear that all campuses, not just our campus as a center, but it's also to hear the improvements here at CSU Stan. I'm glad that they offer these services.
Yes, yes. Because I think when students were, and I think, because of your, coordination, like feeling more safe to disclose and getting their needs met. Because, yes, I feel like so many people will just keep that to themselves. They don't want to say anything. And that could just feel really lonely, I bet.
Yes, I agree. And, we are so thankful because of the support also of staff and faculty who have attended our ally training. And now, they became more supportive, or they know at least, how to help students. And so we have so many faculty and staff who had taken that training. So that also increased, the support here on campus.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And they're amazing. I think we've been part of some of those trainings in the past too. So they're amazing trainings to have to get informed and really know how much some of our streamer students struggle and why it is important to support them, as much as we can.
I really also love your book club and like the book choices that you pick, and how it really gives us an idea of the struggles and the triumphs, of undocumented people in general.
Yes, I agree. And that's another, way where students can connect with others and, feel supportive as well. We have staff and faculty who attend this book club. And so it just creates that stronger relationship for students.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to keep going with the questions here. How do you think that self-compassion would help dreamers?
Yeah, so one of the things, I was thinking about this question a lot, and I feel like the main most important thing that compassion provides to our students is that it gives them back their humanity. It allows them to think about their selves and their life experiences as a human being rather than, the rhetoric that is going on in the United States. It gives the importance and value that they deserve. So I think compassion really helps the student understand, that they are worth of love and self-care and, just loving. And it's just so important for our students to understand that.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I think I agree with you. I think self-compassion should not be limited to certain specific or a certain population. I think self-compassion should be practiced among all of us because it gives us a little bit of worthiness, of value. Sometimes our self-esteem increases even though it's not connected with self-compassion. It also reduces perhaps some of the loneliness, right? It reminds us that we're all non-perfect humans going through different struggles.
Right. Yes. And with self-compassion, I love it because you become mindful of the pain that you're having, or if you feel isolated or feels like you're the only one going through that struggle, but then remembering wow, they have these services on campus. There must be more students, and just knowing that you're not alone is so huge.
Right. It's important belonging, and fitting somewhere because sometimes our students in general already have a hard time fitting in with family members or that family role, right? So it's good to know that they do have these services, that they feel comfortable and that they can belong to a community or a family as well.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I have noticed, with students who do practice self-compassion is that they become more empowered to speak about the issues that they're going through or, their needs, because now they know their value and they can start empowering themselves to advocate for those needs. So it's really, really important that the student, knows that self-compassion is something that they can practice.
Yes, yes. I know, I think I've said this a lot, but like, just building that muscle in your brain of like being kind to yourself instead of coming at yourself with the, the critical voice that a lot of, I think most of us have done that before, but I know I've done that a lot.
Yes, I agree.
Let me see. So our next question, have you noticed that dreamers deal with a critical voice, like being judgmental, maybe motivating themselves with like tough love, rather than self-compassion? I know some examples like, oh, I don't really belong here, I'm never going to pass, graduate, I'm not good enough, those kind of things.
And unfortunately, we do have a lot of that in our community. And it has been embedded, in the beliefs that we have been, hearing often. And so one of the things that I hear often from students is, especially those who are not documented or don't have a work permit, is, well, I don't understand why I'm going to go to school or continue to be a student if I'm not going to be able to work, as I complete my degree. Or the other thing is, well, once I'm done, I'm not going to be able to get a job that I love, so I'm just going to give up. And so those are things that are related, to being undocumented. And unfortunately, sometimes there's no fixing. However, we always tell our students, something that nobody can take away is your education. Mm-hmm. You might not be able to work right away, but there are other ways that you can find employment, or find, avenues to be able to have some income. And so there are some options for our students. It's just a little harder, but we always encourage our students to look for other ways, and it is tiring, that you have to keep on asking yourself these questions over and over the years and decades sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so we totally understand why this is not something that they can change right away, right? But we are here to support them. And even though, we can't change the situation, we are here to help them, gain that value back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like what you mentioned when you said that nobody takes away your education. I think that's an important quote to help our students anchor, mm-hmm. and if necessary, keep repeating, because it's this additional power to what we already have. It's mm-hmm. an additional talent to what we already have. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to education. I really like the way you phrased it. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bet it really resonates with so many, most people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I mentioned, especially for those who are non-documented. And so those are the students that we try to work a little bit more, because we know that they need a little bit more support. Mm-hmm. They have more limitations when it comes to even here in education, right? Like if they want to do an internship, then they might not be able to, because it requires a background check. And so it's just, so many obstacles for them. And so, we are working with them to really understand and know more of the barriers that they face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then our last question for you is, what are some books or great resources that you'd recommend to the audience or to our students out there?
Yes. So there's actually 2 books of the Undocumented Student Book Club has read in the past. And so they are super great. Both of them actually do talk about mental health and the importance of students engaging in that work on healing. And so the first book is Children of the Land by Marcelo Hernandez. And it is a tough book. It does talk a lot about, the mental health, and it will bring up, a lot of feelings that you might have experienced in the past or even currently experience. But it also talks about how do we overcome those feelings, and how do we even get to a place of healing, not only for ourselves, but sometimes for our family, right? Because sometimes the trauma that we experience is also within our families. It's not just personal.
Right.
And then we also have the other book, which is My Undocumented Life by Carla Cornejo. So that book, it actually does focus on mental health. and how the undocumented experience really does bring so much trauma to our lives that we sometimes don't understand, or even we don't acknowledge it as a trauma, right? And so it affects part of our lives that we don't even know.
Yes.
And so it talks about how our communities, especially people of color, don't necessarily believe in mental health. And so this book really will help you, get that access to those mental health resources in your community, even at a national level. So those are two books that are super wonderful. And then we also have the Immigrants Rising Mental Health Connector. So for example, if the student wants to get access to mental health outside of the university because they just felt more comfortable, or maybe not for the student, but they want to access it for their family members, this is a great tool. So it is immigrantsrising.org and then / mental health connector. And so it gives mental health services for free to students and their families. And then also my Undocumented Student Life, it's a website that also provides a lot of tips on how to practice even self-compassion, how to practice, for example, meditation. So especially as an undocumented person, it might look different. So it just gives a lot of tips for those students who might want to take a look at that.
I love it. Thank you. I'm writing all this down.
Thank you so much, Polet. Those were, not just great resources, but everything you shared was really, really important information. So I hope that our audience out there listens to this carefully and they reach out to you if they need additional help, because you're amazing. By the way, I've read one of the books that you mentioned because of the book club that Polet organizes, and it's amazing. So also check out the resources because they're very, very helpful.
Yes.
But it also helps you connect. Some of the books that she mentioned, you really feel like you can connect.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And they're written by undocumented folks. So it just gives a little bit more perspective on what we experience.
Yes, yes. And I know on your website as well, you have a lot of good resources on there. So
yes, we also have resources for our students, for staff, faculty, for those who just want to learn a little bit more about undocumented students and just how to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Polet. We are very, very grateful to have you today. We are moving forward to the activity of the day. For today, we thought self-compassion break would be a great activity to practice, not just for our general students, but also for our dreamer students, because I feel that sometimes with a lot of first-gen students and a lot of dreamers, we do have additional roles to take care of at home. And sometimes we give, but we don't really take care of ourselves. We don't really take the moment to focus on us and meet our needs. Because always remember out there, if we don't have any energy left in our bodies, we're not going to have any energy left to keep giving. We need to make sure that we recharge and are, full with that energy to keep helping and keep giving. Okay.
Yes.
And I think self-compassion, that's a great example of an activity to recharge ourselves.
Yes. And it doesn't take that long. And
All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a reminder that we would also like to invite our audience to participate in the activity. If you would like to participate, you only need a comfortable space to sit down or lay down as we guide you through this activity. And of course, we also invite Polet, our guest for the day, to participate. So just a reminder that sometimes mindfulness and deep breathing can be triggering. Please make sure to take care of you and meet your needs in that moment. Feel free to please stop if anything doesn't work for you or your body. Let's go ahead and get started. I want you to go ahead and try putting your body in a comfortable position, whether you're sitting down, laying down, or standing up. I always like to give the reminder that if at any time you want to stand up, just make sure that you're leaning up against something in order to remove some of the pressure from the shoulder area all the way to the neck area. Once you found that comfortable position, gently close your eyes. If you do not feel comfortable closing your eyes, that's completely okay. If you're sitting down, feel free to look down at the ground. It will help you stay grounded. And if you're laying down while doing this activity and there's no light up in front of you, gently go ahead and look up at the ceiling. It will also help you stay grounded. Let's start by just taking a few deep breaths. Notice how the air goes in and out, in and out, in and out. Continue noticing the breathing around you. Notice how your body feels when you breathe in and out. For just a few more seconds, practice that controlled breathing. Now let's go ahead and forget about the controlled breathing and go back to the normal rhythm of your breathing. Not much to do, just normal breathing. Now think of a situation in your life that is causing you stress, such as a health problem, a class problem, a relationship problem, perhaps it's a work problem, or any other kind of struggle. Try choosing a problem in the mild to moderate range, not a huge problem, as we want to build the resource of self-compassion gradually. Once you've chosen that situation, take the time to really imagine it in your mind. Ask yourself, what is the setting? Who is saying what to whom? What is happening? Or what might happen? Again, really visualize that almost as if it was playing in a movie in your mind. And ask yourself, what is the setting? Who is saying what to whom? What is happening? And what might happen? Take a few seconds to continue that image in your mind. Can you feel discomfort in your body as you bring this difficulty to your mind? Are any emotions coming up while you thought of this situation or this struggle? If not, I'll give you a few seconds to change the situation to perhaps a struggle that will bring up a few more feelings. Now that you've chosen a situation that has brought up feelings, I want you to go ahead and think of the feelings that came up. If necessary, I want you to imagine that there's a list of feelings in front of you, whether it's sadness, loneliness, isolated, sad, anxious, scared. Try making a list of all these feelings right in front of you. Now I want you to go ahead and imagine that you're walking closer and closer to these feelings. And now you're at the closest that you can get. Now envision that your arm is reaching out. And I want you to go ahead and grab the feeling that comes up the most. Perhaps it's a feeling that just keeps coming up, no matter how many times you take it back to your mind, or you place it underneath the carpet, it just keeps coming up. I want you to envision again that you're reaching out to this feeling, and you're placing it in your chest, almost as if you were hugging this feeling. And as you hug this feeling, let's go ahead and practice mindfulness. Try saying, this is a moment of suffering. This hurts. Ouch. This is stressful. This is difficult. And take a few seconds to keep repeating these statements for just a few seconds. As you keep hugging this feeling, try practicing common humanity. Try saying in your mind, suffering is a part of life. I'm not alone. Everyone experiences this just like me. This is how it feels when people struggle in this way. Others would probably have similar feelings if they had experienced something similar to this. And just as before, try repeating these phrases for just a few seconds. Now it's time to let go of that feeling you were protecting in your chest. It's time to let go of that feeling that you were hugging. We're letting it go not because we're done with it. We're letting it go because we have finally identified it. We have validated that this feeling is a feeling that we have had for a while, or perhaps recently. Imagine that it slowly fades away. And perhaps our hands feel a little bit lonely, but that's okay. Let's try using a soothing touch. Perhaps placing a hand in your heart, or two hands in your heart. Perhaps it's putting a hand in your belly, or two hands in your belly. Maybe it's just hugging yourself. But try practicing a soothing touch that works for you as we continue for the rest of this activity. As you practice the soothing touch, let's go ahead and use some self-kindness. Try saying to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. May I accept myself as I am. May I begin to accept myself as I am. May I forgive myself. May I be strong. May I be patient. And if necessary, keep repeating these phrases for just a few seconds. Those are all great examples of self-kind phrases. But let's go ahead and give it a try to create our own self-compassionate phrase. Try coming up with a kind and supportive phrase that you can tell yourself based on the difficulty or the struggle or the situation that you've chosen for this activity. And always remember, if you're having a hard time finding the right words, you can always imagine that a dear friend or loved one is having the same problem as you. What would you say to this person? What simple message would you like to deliver to your friend, heart to heart? And once you've discovered that message, see if you can apply that same message for yourself. I'll give you a few seconds to give yourself an opportunity to come up with your own self-kind phrase. Before we end, I want you to give yourself an opportunity to notice how you're currently feeling. Not much to do. Just enjoy this present moment. Notice how your body feels, how your mind feels, and how your heart feels. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and let's come back together to talk about it.
That was really nice, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your voice is so soothing. It's so wonderful.
Thank you.
That's when we got the idea to do a podcast, because the students in our group, our self-compassion group, were like, "Oh, your voices are so nice."
Yes, it is.
We're like, "We should do a podcast."
Wonderful. Well, thank you for doing that. It was really wonderful.
We kind of wanted to process this activity with you as our guest. If you feel comfortable, tell us a little bit about how was the experience for you. Did anything come up while you were practicing this exercise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, my life constantly is on the go, 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 that I don't really take time, to do this simple, but such a wonderful activities. And so once we started, I was like, man, I really haven't had this sense of relief in such a long time. Especially because I recently became a mom, so I haven't really stopped. So I felt very relaxed, as we started. Of course, feelings did come out, where I just felt like I haven't had the opportunity to really think about what's going on in my life and just give myself compassion and, that break, because I do need it. So it was such a wonderful activity.
Thank you. I'm glad that it was helpful. I have to say that I connect with you on the go, go, go. As a mom myself, you're right. We're always on the go, go, go. We don't really take that time to slow down.
And children, they always need something.
Right.
The only break you get is, when they go to bed at night.
Yes.
But then you're exhausted by that time. So you need to just go to sleep, probably.
Yes, or you want to finish the things that you didn't accomplish throughout the day, right? But this is a reminder, that we are human, that we need to take breaks, that we need, that we have these feelings, and that we should consider, taking care of that too. Because as you mentioned in the beginning, if we don't have energy ourselves, how can we give it out? So it's just a reminder.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I really love how the phrases are, may I be kind to myself? May I, because I found with so many of my students, that I work with, that it's kind of like, when you're in that emotional state, it's hard to, like, if it was, I will, because it's like, but it's the may I is like, you're giving yourself permission, but it's like, it's something doable. Like, I can do that. It feels better.
Right.
Yes.
A lot of students ask me, what's the difference between positive affirmations? And I always inform them that positive affirmations can have very high expectations. It's like Jen mentioned, the I will. And the I will is like a contract. But what if we're not there yet? What if we're really down here and we really try to achieve those positive affirmations, and then a month passes by and we don't feel that way? We're only going to feel worse. We're going to feel like we failed at something that we really wanted to be successful at. And, you're right. I think that may I, or looking at it as a wish or as a goal, gives us an entrance to be a little bit more realistic with ourselves. I think that's one of the things I do like about self-compassion, is that we don't necessarily have to fake it, or we don't necessarily have to have high expectations. We can be very realistic about it, as long as they're supportive and compassionate phrases.
And it's always available for us to, get and give to ourselves. I think, another part of that I love, and students will always mention this, like in group or even in individual, they'll say, I love how it tells you to embrace like the feeling and like hug it. And, you know, and a lot of times it's like a difficult feeling, right? So it's like, I don't know, like kind of giving that feeling like, you know, it has a purpose, like it's doing something. I don't know. How did you feel about that one part?
I think it's a we have to be very vulnerable, right? With these feelings. And so it just brings so much more power to it at the moment, right? But once you let go, you know, there's a moment where you acknowledge it and you feel it, but you almost let it go. And so it does give you a sense of relief, you know, at least in that moment. So it did feel very real in the moment, but it's you know, like I really like where it says it's painful, you know, and it will hurt, but once we deal with it, it's different, and it's easier to handle it because we acknowledge it and we understand. And I think that's part of the self-compassion, right? Understanding that it won't be easy, or it won't be, you know, something that you'll start bringing like feelings and then you just let them go and you will never feel them again. It's not like that, right? But we acknowledge it, and that's part of the healing process.
Yes.
So it is wonderful.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I just wrote down healing because I always forget what I'm going to say. But I was thinking like, yes, it is. It's part, self-compassion is definitely part of the healing process, and it allows yourself to feel the pain, but then bring in that self-compassion to kind of help you through it, which is really cool.
I was wondering, how was it for you to close your eyes and put yourself in a comfortable position? I always ask that, and I get a variety of answers to, yes, it was really relaxing, to it was awkward at first.
Yes, it is. It is. You know, I think it takes vulnerability even just to do that, right? Especially in a group. I think sometimes it's just so hard, you know, to get into the mindset of, you know, I'm just gonna allow myself to feel this this moment where and so I think we did it in the past with our students, and that was the thing. A lot of students said I can't relax enough to actually practice it, and so that's something that can come up with for students, right? But with practice, it will get better and it will get easier, because we will have to get vulnerable with ourselves. And that's something, a place of uncomfort for many of us.
Right.
Well, and practicing is so good. You know, there is on selfcompassion.org and also the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. They have some audios that you can listen to, like with a bunch of different self-compassion app practices that you could listen. But you're right. I think practicing it, because when Julia and I first started, we were like, this was so long. That one was, we felt awkward as well.
You know, and one of the great things that I've learned through all these trainings of self-compassion is that we really need to slow it down at first to really understand, you know, the process, because you're right, it does take vulnerability, and we're not going to get there if we rush it. We have to think about the quality and the quantity, right? This is not just about doing it. This is about really putting these feelings out there and really wanting to work and heal properly, right? We want to think about the quality of healing, not just the quantity of healing, not just keep adding tools in your toolbox, but actually practicing. And once you really get it down, and it can be 3 times in, it can be 5 times in, depending on the kind of person you are, you don't need to slow it down as much anymore. That's one thing that I've learned, which is great, because like I mentioned before, I'm go sometimes. I just have to, because I'm a mom, right? Really, you know, not a lot of time in between from one transition to the other. But one thing I've learned is that once you really slow it down, you really get it, you can actually do this pretty quickly. You can ask yourself the three steps, you know, basically choose a situation and then ask yourself, what are my feelings at the moment? Let's validate these feelings. Let's remind myself that I'm not alone. Let's practice common humanity. And then last but not least, the last step is just self-kindness and coming up with a compassionate phrase based on the situation you chose. But we do kind of mention the importance of slowing down at the beginning, because again, it's about the quality of work, not necessarily the quantity of work.
And once you get really like you practice it more, you get better at it. You can just do it like that, like in your head, like, oh, I'm noticing, oh, I'm feeling like this. What's that about? And then just taking that brief little bit of time and kind of soothe yourself. And then you can kind of like keep going because everybody's so busy all the time.
Yes, and you can start utilizing in situations as you go through your day, right? So it's such a wonderful tool that as you learn, it can be part of your life.
Yes, yes. Oh, I agree. Well, we wanted to thank Polet for coming and being part of our podcast.
Thank you so much, Polet, again.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was such a wonderful experience. And, I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to speak with our students and, and especially in this important topic. So thank you, both of you.
Perfect. Thank you. And so we would like to close with a poem. But remember, stay kind to yourself. So here's the poem. They have no idea what it is like to lose home at the risk of never finding home again. Have your entire life split between two lands and become the bridge between two countries. This was by first-generation immigrant Rupi Kaur.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes and does not substitute for mental health care from a licensed professional. If you are in need of more support and are enrolled at Stan State, contact CAPS at 209-667-3381. You can also follow us on Instagram at Stan State CAPS to see our upcoming groups and workshops. You can find this podcast and other Stan State podcasts online at csustan.edu/podcasts. You can also listen and download past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform. So be sure to follow and subscribe for the new episode alerts.